Live from the Motor City, all the way to the Volunteer State. It's time for the Reckless Speculation Podcast, where we recklessly speculate the latest news in the world of sports. From college football to NASCAR, we've got you covered. And don't forget to stick around for the world-famous Bet Your Nuts, where we will give you your best bets to make the most money. Now sit back, grab your favorite drink of choice, and join Robbie Davis, Raj Mehta, Brandon Chain, and Tom Sloan. It's showtime.
Welcome, everyone. My name's Robbie. I'm the host here of Reckless Speculation. Thank you for joining. I just want to comment that I love my little chipmunk-looking picture on the intro. Tom really got the best of me there. But yeah, welcome, everybody. It is June 29th. I cannot believe it's already the end of June. This year's flying by. We have reached the dog days of summer, but don't worry, we're going to keep you guys entertained. We just had the NBA draft last week, the NHL draft last night, and obviously we all know the NFL draft was just passed a few months ago. So tonight what we're going to be talking a little bit about is the best and worst draft classes. Brandon and I, being Titans fans, we have had our share of trouble with the draft. The Lions and the Raiders speak for themselves. We're going to dive into all of that. We're going to talk a little baseball and then a little bit of just, life stuff towards the end. But if you're on already, if you please like, subscribe. It really helps us build our audience and reach more people. This show is being brought to you by C&W Construction. They have a little bit of everything you need. Full house builds, fireplaces, pools, remodels, porches, anything you need in the greater Franklin, Nashville area. They're your go-to. It's also being brought to you by Disclaimer, my law firm, Davis, Kessler & Davis. We specialize in personal injury, getting cats out of jail, criminal defense. There's a new boating under the influence law that's coming into effect this weekend. So that's in Tennessee, beware. A BUI is now treated the same as a DUI. So be safe out there. I know a lot of people go into the water, so be safe. Without further ado, this is something that we've been on this show. We've been doing this for 2 years or so. I have never had the pleasure of doing this because it's been an impossibility. But tonight, for the first time, I'm going to introduce Raj Mehta first.
What do I do?
Yeah.
Never been here.
Have you ever seen an introduction?
What do I do? I don't know. I didn't know what to do. So hello, people. Say hello to Raggio, who my 8-year-old, now 9-year-old, very different from any other popular cartoon figure, Japanese or otherwise. So he painted him to make sure we don't infringe on any trademark or copyright laws. And me and Raggio are ready to go.
Speaking of trademark and copyright laws, I've got to tell you that we are all, it's an hour show. We are going to be powered by Jack, where there we go, some single barrel. And then I've got my cup ready for the close up, where every day we make it the best we can. Oh, Jack Daniels. There we go.
I got the Jack magnet on my mini fridge in my office, which is
up in Franklin, just back from Aruba on vacation. Brandon Chain.
What's going on, boys? Enjoying a little Jack myself.
Can you believe it's the end of June already?
Oh my gosh, this year's flown by. I mean,
it really has. For those of you who aren't in Tennessee, the Canadian fire has made its way down here, and so we have been very hazy and smoky today. I know Tom's been dealing with it for the past couple of days. Well, and without further ado, Tom, welcome.
Good evening. I am enjoying some Bush Latte Peach.
How's that?
It's way too good. Too good. I bought a 30-pack last week and not much left.
Well, luckily there's more 30 packs to come. Anyone have any big 4th of July cookout plans over the weekend?
Nothing. Just hanging out here.
The weather here is supposed to be pretty lousy. Fireworks on Sunday night in the lake that we keep our boat, so we're fingers crossed we'll get a nice day for that. But it's going to be doing a little Blackstone cooking in the garage, probably.
Nice. Well, without further ado,
You're muted.
don't know how that just happened. Without further ado, let's get into our topics today. We're talking about draft classes, and we're not. There's some that are, they say they're inarguable, and they say, this is the best, hands down. But we're going to talk a little bit about, one across the board. This came into a topic of what do we think is the best in each class, blah blah blah, or the best NBA class, the best NHL class, NBA class, or NFL class. But then we started thinking about, messaging back and forth. What's the best overall year class that we have? And so let's just show some examples of, some top 5 classes, and let's talk about it. Obviously, you got Magic, Bill Cartwright, Bill Laimbeer, Larry Bird. NFL, Joe Montana, Kellen Winslow Sr., Phil Simms, Dan Hampton. MLB, Gary Gaddy, Don Mattingly. NHL, Gretzky, Ray Bork, Mark Messier, and Michael Goulier. I think that's right. Is that right?
It would be Michel Goulet.
Yeah. Always the one reading the names with the pressure. And then what do we got number 2 listed on here? So for those who are listening and not necessarily on YouTube, 1981, Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre, Tom Chambers in the NBA. NFL is where it gets interesting. Lawrence Taylor, Ronnie Lott, Mike Singletary, Howie Long, Ricky Jackson, Russ Grimm. MLB, Tony Gwynn, Joe Carter, David Cohn. NHL, Del Horachuk, Ron Francis,
Howard Chuck.
I should probably let you read the hockey ones. Grant Fuhrer, Al McInnes, and Chris Chelios. All right, and then 83, then we'll do one more. So Clyde Drexler, Ralph Sampson, NBA. Obviously, the NFL class. Elway, Marino, Kelly, Bruce Matthews, Darryl Green, Eric Dickerson, Richard Dent, a star-studded class. MLB, Roger Clemens, Steve Yzerman, Pat LaFontaine, Cam Neely, Dominic Hasek,
Vladislav Tretiak, Vladislav Tretiak, and Vyacheslav Fetisov.
So Brandon in the preview room saw this coming and was already laughing at me before I got there.
Oh, better you than me, man. I would have butchered it worse. So.
And then we'll go one more, and then we'll talk about who's the 4th class over there. Of course, the 1984 class. Obviously, the NBA. Jordan, Hakeem, Barkley, Stockton. And this is where it got interesting. I didn't realize this was the same class in NFL. Steve Young, Reggie White, Gary Zimmerman, Carl Banks, Boomer Esiason. And then in baseball also, McGuire, Maddox, Glavine, Leiter. And then also a stud class in the NHL. Mario Lemieux, Patrick Waugh, Brett Hull, and Luke Robitaille.
Robitaille.
Okay, Robitaille. All right. Now that embarrassment's out, let's talk about it. Tom, we'll start with you because you're going to have the NHL knowledge that we're going to have to lean on while we judge these classes.
Well, looking at those, the 83 draft for me, I think up and down is amazing, especially with the NHL. Steve Yzerman, obviously, the captain, we call him around here. He's now the GM, and let's hope.
I got Yzerman right. I knew that.
Let's hope that he figured this out. He's in year 5 of his quote rebuild. But so you look at Yzerman and Pat LaFontaine. Pat LaFontaine grew up about a half an hour just north of here in Waterford, Michigan, and he actually has his family has a whole line of car dealerships throughout the area. So Cam Neely was a legend in Boston. Hasek won a cup here in Detroit, one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. Tretiak with the Devils, and Vyacheslav Fetisov, who also played for the Devils, but finished his career in Detroit. So you have basically
Isn't that how I pronounced it?
Vyacheslav Fetisov. Number 2. So 3 of these players played for the Red Wings and all won cups with the Red Wings. But that NFL
let
draft,
me give you some pushback though. Isn't this as great as the NFL and the NHL is in this class? Isn't it dinged a little bit that only one MLB player and 2 NBA players are there?
yeah, and the one NBA or MLB player is, riddled with controversy with his PED usage and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I mean, with that being said, he still was the most dominant pitcher of his time. So, but yeah, I mean, it was down. But then when you look at the NFL draft alone, I mean, there were 6 quarterbacks taken in that draft.
Well, Clyde won 2 rings with Houston. Did Samson? I know he won college championships. Did he win an NBA championship?
No, I don't believe so.
I don't think so either.
No.
All right, that's a good choice. 1983. Shane, what do you think?
Man, I'm struggling with the years because I would probably agree with the 83 year, but I went just strictly MLB versus NBA versus NFL.
All right, let's hear what you got.
So I've got MLB, I've got McGuire, Maddox, Glavine, Leiter, and then a close back and forth here. Bonds, Johnson, Smoltz, and Barry Larkin. I mean, that was a solid class as well. So I think the years kind of got dinged, like you said, to fit in the overall year category. But those were my 2 favorite MLB classes. NBA would be Kobe, Ray Allen, Allen Iverson, and Steve Nash. And then LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Carmelo Anthony.
So you're going both of those classes over the 84 class. I
am.
Okay.
Personally, that's just how I grew up watching those people more. So, I tend to lean that way. And then NFL, I've got, of course, the Elway, Marino, the same one, Bruce Matthews, all that. Other one I think it was the Ray Lewis one. I didn't have enough room on my scratch paper to write it down. So let me look here. Yeah, I believe it was the Ray Lewis. Yeah. No, it was not. Hold on. 1 second. Oh, yeah. Andre Johnson, Terrell Suggs, Troy Polamalu, Anquan Bolden, Jason Witten, Antonio Gates, Carson Palmer.
So let me ask you this. So you have go back to basketball. After those 2 drafts, the 96 and the 2003, do you have 79 or 84 as your third slot? So 79 was the Magic.
Yeah.
Bird.
I would probably take. That's a close one, man. I'd probably go 84 just because Jordan's in there.
Yeah.
And Charles Barkley is just classic. He never won a championship, though, I don't believe.
He did not, no.
But Hall of Famer in his own, and Stockton was amazing as well. And, of course, Hakeem Olajuwon. So I would lean that way. Those were great. And that I struggled with that one too, but I looked at quantity as well versus just a lesser quality. So, or not necessarily.
In both of those drafts, it got interesting who was the 5th part, because you can make an argument for both of those top 4 being just incredible. Raj, what do you got? Either overall in totality or sport by sport?
I mean, I don't really go sports by sport. If you're saying MLB, I go the year I was born, which means I'm fucking old, but 1976, mainly because of 2 Detroit Tigers in honor of Tom, who will know that Jack Morris, the pitcher, and Alan Trammell, Mike Scioscia, the 1988 Dodger catcher for Oral Hershiser, and Fernando and that championship team with Kirk Gibson and Wade Boggs, but of course, Ricky Henderson, who's the biggest gangster of all time. Not only did he steal bases, but he referred to himself in the third person, which is fucking awesome. And so I love him. But really, overall, like I think the 1983 NFL draft, I think I counted 16 guys that played more than 5 years in the NFL. That most were all pros. Now, one caveat: 1983, 1984, 1985 was the USFL was around. So some guys, like as Tom would know, the University of Michigan, 3-time All Big Ten, I think 1 or 2-time All American receiver Anthony Carter, who was on Minnesota and later on Detroit, like right up Tom's alley. No, you're right, Tom. He did, but he was drafted second to last. Back then, the NFL draft was 12 rounds. He was picked number 334. The guy had 7,700 yards, 55 TDs, and 400 plus near 500 receptions. So he was drafted in the USFL. Irv Eatman, a tackle, same thing. But if you go down, Roger Craig, Tim Krumrie, iconic guys from January 22nd, 1989, which was Super Bowl 22, San Francisco and Cincinnati. You have all those Hall of Fame quarterbacks, but speed receivers, Willie Gault, Henry Ellard. Interesting thing about Willie Gault is he was one of the first guys to do ballet as a receiver, and he admitted that, and that was for the sidelines. It was a different NFL then, and they were evolving, and that was with McMahon and Walter Payton, but that's another conversation. Mervin Fernandez, and then, again, Richard Dent was a Hall of Famer in the 8th round. So I have to go with 1983 overall, 85 NFL, 2003, and like you guys said, 84 NBA. Other guys that produced that year, late picks, Atlanta Hawks, Forehead, Kevin Willis, and Super Chronic, Sam Perkins, who always looked like he was high when he played.
I like it. All right. So, I think you guys are pretty spot on. I do tend to somewhat agree with Brandon, that 96 draft with Kobe, Ray Allen, Steve Nash, Iverson, Peja Stojakovic, Marcus Camby, Stephon Marbury, Sreem Abdul-Rahif, Jermaine O'Neal, Derek Fisher. That's a lot of championships in there.
And Kobe drafted at 13 by Charlotte, traded with Lonnie Divac, Jerry West.
A lot of people missed on that. I kind of like that one. So next, we're keeping with drafts. So we talked about the best, and now we got to get on the flip side of the worst. And so the biggest draft bust. Now, for some of us, this may be personal. I can think of one person in particular that it's personal. So let's start off with, and these don't have to be, exclusive of each other. Like the biggest draft can be your team's biggest draft. So let's talk about individual right now, the biggest draft bust that you can recall. So overall, any sports, what's your biggest draft bust? Brandon, we'll start with you.
Aside from the Cleveland Browns quarterback selection, which would include,
you're gonna have to be more specific than that.
I would say, how many quarterbacks have they gone through in the last 15 or 20 years? 2 of them off the top of the head is Brady Quinn, Johnny Manziel. Really big bust there. Another old school big bust in a draft was Steve Spurrier. He was terrible, and he was considered to be on one of the worst Tampa Bay Buccaneer teams ever in history. He was great in college, obviously coaching and playing. His stint with the Redskins in the NFL is also equally as terrible as his play. But the overall number one, probably unanimous, biggest bust. I'm going to stick with the NFL, Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, he's a pretty obvious one to go with. Obviously, tons of potential. A couple of good Sugar Bowls really propelled him to the number one pick by the Raiders. And so we'll see if that. Tom, what do you got? Well, who's your biggest bust?
Well, actually, Jamarcus Russell is rated number 5 on Bleacher Report's top 50 biggest busts in all of sports. To me, this one hits near and dear to my heart. 2003 NBA draft, as we all know, was incredible.
Darko,
LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Carmelo Anthony, blah, blah, blah. Joe Dumars decided he was going to go to Serbia to take this then 17-year-old kid. Yeah, he's been playing professional basketball there for 3 years. Darko Milicic, the human victory cigar, averaged a total of, I think it was 4.6 points in his NBA career. Finished off athletics as an MMA fighter, and now he has a farm back home. So, ironically enough, the biggest bust per Bleacher Report was Lawrence Phillips, who was this huge running back coming out of Nebraska. He was drafted by the Rams, number 6 overall in 96. Had problems with the law, in and out of prison. He is now deceased. So he was number 1. Ryan Leaf, number 2. So that we all know his issues, but for me, it's Darko. I mean, because with the way that draft, and if not for Joe Dumars making the great decision to bring Rasheed Wallace in, they would have never won a championship, and luckily we did. So Darko was an afterthought for the most part.
Yeah, and this is where it gets tricky, like, because it's like, like you say Ryan Leaf, but I'm not sure there's a good quarterback behind him that they could have picked. I mean, and I'll let Raj talk. You could argue one of the biggest busts or one of the worst picks was the Bears taking Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. Raj, what do you got your biggest pick? Actually, my biggest bust is not even on this list, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Lawrence Phillips thing is stupid. He was a great player. He had some good NFL years. There's a great documentary on him that Showtime had made. If you want to talk about a difficult upbringing, it's that guy. And I'm not rationalizing per se. I think Bleacher Report and others viewed him as the next Herschel Walker, which he really was athletically, but he had just incident after incident in his life and made bad decisions, and back then was chastised with no ability to defend himself, and no ability to speak out. Social media, you can chastise, but you can also rationalize right after. So he was just hammered, and it was self-nullifying behavior. And sadly, you'll find that, with Ryan Leaf, it became drugs. And Tony Mandarich was the one I was going to go with. It was steroids. He was a guy that was featured on Sports Illustrated in that year. In, I think, 1989 NFL draft, Aikman, Oklahoma, transferred to UCLA, of all things. By the way, finished 3rd in the Heisman voting that year. Number 2 was Rodney Peete. Number 1 was a running back by the name of Barry Sanders, who actually went 3rd in that draft behind Mandarich. The Detroit Lions should be very thankful for Green Bay, which is rare. Derek Thomas and then Dion. But Todd Marinovich, Lawrence Phillips, Jamarcus Russell turned to the purple drink. It was said that Al Davis saw Jamarcus throw the ball from the 50-yard line into the end zone from his knees and drafted him because of that. Similar philosophies were used for Darius Hayward Bay and others, but we'll get to that later. But really it comes down to, like you said, the guys drafted behind you, and it's a massive what if. Not everyone needed a quarterback per se, but I thought of Mandarich just because of Green Bay's need for an offensive tackle at the time was not the same, and there was just so many athletic players drafted around him, just sheer athleticism, and everyone thought he was a freak, and really it was pretty clearly roids, and it showed right away.
Yeah, my biggest bust, and partly is just because of just a lack of time in the league and in a sport where if you have size and you have girth, like you can play it. It's Anthony Bennett from UNLV that was drafted number 1 from Cleveland.
He had size, all right, from in and out.
In a draft class where there was really no standouts, if you're gonna gamble, Giannis Antetokounmpo was sitting there 15. Gamble on him, and that franchise has changed. He was
it's
easy
fat
in
in
hindsight.
college. It was
What's
just
that?
He was fat in college, and then
Oh yeah,
when
well,
you
a little
take
bit,
a lot of these other
little bit
guys,
of Zion going on with him, and this is coming from a fat guy, but I'm also not trying to play in the NBA.
You're also not 20.
All right, so Raj, we'll stick with you in a team or in a subject that you could probably spend the whole hour talking about. What's the worst pick the Raiders have ever made?
I mean, this is just the millennium. I think anything you just start with the best pick they made was a kicker in the first round. I mean, if you start there as your baseline,
that's some Lanier fantasy football strategy there.
It's again, the draft is about value and need, and not about metrics. Literally, Tyler Brayton, first round, Colorado. Robert Gallery, offensive tackle, number 2 overall, ended up switching to guard and having a decent career, but he was so slow. They were the only people that didn't see that. Conversely, Darius Hayward-Bay at number 7, wide receiver from Maryland. He just ran the fastest, 40, awful receiver, couldn't get open. DJ Hayden, fastest DB out of Houston, 2014, I think. I can't remember. Rolando McClain,
nobody loved the combine more than Al Davis.
Oh my God, it was so pathetic. Farrell, Ruggs, Michael Huff, and again Marinovich, that's going before, and Jamarcus. But there are, I think, from 2020 on, I would say 14 first-round picks were complete and total busts. I mean, think about that, dude. And this is a team with multiple first-round picks because the few players they did have, they traded away as if they knew what they were doing. I mean, honestly, people wonder why I drink a lot. Because I don't have hobbies, and I've been a Raider fan since 1982.
So what is it? Is it Leatherwood? Is it?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that fat idiot. The worst, dude. It's hard for me. At Farrell was really tough because there are a few guys though that had like a second or third round grade, like Hayward-Bay, McClain, 2 Ohio State DBs, and Arnett.
Ruggs is the only one in prison,
honestly,
right?
I can't. It's like if I had 3 kids asking me to pick the one I love the most. There are so many that I hate that I just can't pick one.
Fair enough. All right, we'll go from that to the miserable Lions. Tom, what is your draft history? What's your just the one you can't get over?
Well, we'll start with the year after Barry Sanders, who won the Heisman. Andre Ware out of Houston. The Lions draft him, number 7th. He was a complete bust. There was so much hope and hype. The Lions ran the run and shoot offense. The Houston Cougars ran the run and gun, similar style offense in Houston. It just never equated to much. The aforementioned USC Trojan, Rodney Peete, beat him out of the job year after year, and eventually the Lions parted ways with him. We're going to go 2003, the number 2 pick. This is the cornbread Kool-Aid pick for the Lions. Charles Rogers out of Michigan State, who broke his collarbone, I believe, in his second game as a professional and came back the next year, and he re-aggravated the injury and never played for the Lions again. He was
played
in and out of
15 games.
Yeah, he was in and out of trouble with the law, and he has since deceased. He died a couple years ago. And then in 2005, when they decided to challenge the NFL about the ruling of age, they go and draft Mike Williams out of USC. And another hype train.
Oh, I forgot about this.
Another hype train, very immature, thought he was better than the game. The league absolutely ate him up. He never really amounted to a whole lot. And who could forget the number 3 pick, 2002, the lovable Oregon Duck, Joey Ballgame Harrington. Man, Matt Millen was probably the worst general manager of any sports franchise in the history of sports. And he just absolutely blew the bunny when it came to these draft picks. And thankfully, he's gone and the former regime's gone. And they have a different culture that's changed, and they're a little bit more efficient.
I always just kind of wondered what his relationship, because he's horrible. He was horrible at his job. Yeah. Kept his job. I'm like, I don't understand it.
I think the general or the president, Ford, basically liked him. He was a really good play-by-play guy for Fox.
Yeah.
And they just decided they wanted to go a different direction and brought him in. And he may be worse than the previous regime, which around here we're not allowed to use those names. So we just refer to them as the previous regime.
All right, Brandon, I'm interested in who you got. I know who I've got. Who is the Titans' worst pick ever? And we are on no shortage of quarterback busts in our franchise.
I've got a long list of really, really bad picks. But the absolute worst pick to me is Isaiah Wilson. It's got to be out of Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, 29th overall, first round. He played, not even just one game. He played 3 snaps in the NFL. 3 snaps in the NFL. And then we traded him to, I think, the Dolphins for a 7th round pick. And then they cut him to the waiver wire. You're on mute, by the way. I can't hear you. But yeah, absolutely. Just one of J-Rob's reasons I think he got fired. But yeah, other than him, you can go through our quarterback list as long as you want. Marcus Mariota, I knew when we picked him, that was just going to be terrible. He was a systematic quarterback. You saw it at Oregon. You saw Ohio State beat them. All he could do was scramble with his legs, and he was good at that. And he's been serviceable, but as far as the number 1 pick, no. And the whole Vince Young ordeal, of course. Bishop Sankey was another one. We got him in the 2nd round. He was a pretty big bust. Of course, Jake Locker, the glass man, dude had all the heart in the world, but I think he stepped on the wrong piece of grass and broke his ankle. So that sucked. Kenny Britt showed a lot of promise, just he couldn't stay healthy. But yeah, I mean, the laundry list goes on. I'll save room for you to give some of the names.
I must be pushing on the side of my mouth. Vince Young also, did you mention him?
Mm-hmm.
So in an amazing, probably the most incredible draft to have in 2020, the Titans had 6 picks. Those 6 picks combined played 96 games in the NFL. That's unbelievable.
2020 was the worst draft.
That is unbelievable.
Like,
To have that.
uh,
I mean, to put it in comparison, Cortland Finnegan alone played in 133 games. So he alone played more than that entire draft class.
yeah, the Isaiah Wilson stat is just mind-boggling. I wanted to use him as my worst draft bust ever in the history, but I knew we were doing the team thing, so I didn't. Jamarcus Russell was a layup.
And he was drafted late in the first round, but
29th.
Yeah, I mean,
but still, I mean, he
still
was
a
this
first-round
big hype
pick.
from Georgia, and it's still a first-round pick, and you played 3 snaps in the NFL.
Yeah,
that's the incredible stat to me.
His stat line: 0 tackles, 0 everything, 1 game played, 3 snaps. Amazing.
Oh, it's incredible.
Partially,
I think the 2020 was the real downturn for J-Rob there.
So we have this the next topic. Who suffered the most on draft night? We have some explicits on our notes. I think that is that from Raj or is that from Tom? Who wrote that?
No more Titans? That was me. You guys were like a support group. I'm like, we don't want to hear that shit.
Well, if you had a Raider fan on here, you'd be getting the same.
Exactly. Yeah, I need a drink.
Oh boy!
All right,
Fireball.
So, yeah, what's like the biggest? Yeah, suffer the most. So, what do y'all think about that? Go ahead, Rob.
NFL?
Just your teams in general. But I mean, the NFL is really the only draft that really matters that much.
The only draft you really watch, right?
I mean, Tom, with all due respect, I mean, they just sucked. The Raiders had so many blown opportunities. It was pathetic. And they were the Raiders. You know, they had budget. They were a name. They're silver and black. They just missed so many opportunities. It was just – and they were worse than the Lions for 15 years.
Well, the Lions' problem, they would go after the name. It was the name, and they would draft the name. And, of course, they never seemed to pan out, except for Barry Sanders back in those days. But, yeah, they had a couple, Chris Spielman and Herman Moore. So they hit on a couple good picks. But for the most part, they went after the name, and it bit them in the ass.
Yeah, and I will say this: I will defer to the Lions and the Raiders because the Titans have never had the chance to really shit the bed. Like it's always been like, oh, there's been pieces in front of them. Like they've never had the number 1 pick to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna completely fuck this up.
Right.
And we went to a Super Bowl
for like 19 years as well. I mean,
right.
You guys went to a Super Bowl, unlike the Lions.
Yeah,
exactly, which sucked. Like 2 years in, and they were like Vegas Golden Knights. Hey, we're a new team.
Except
the Tennessee Oilers.
There's 2 moments that I can recall that I wanted to like immediately sell my season tickets.
That's jealousy, by the way. From
I can't remember. I can't remember who the cornerback was behind Pac-Man, but I was adamantly pissed whenever we took Pac-Man.
Yeah, I don't remember or recall that.
Could it have been Asamoah? Could the Raiders have played a factor in that? That was like one of their rare good picks.
Yeah, it may have been that. Yeah, let me see what your Pac-Man.
Then Philly signed him for a huge deal, and then they realized he sucked. It was just the AFC West was terrible back then.
No, I wanted Carlos Hyde over Bishop Sankey, and he was sitting right there.
Of course you wanted Carlos Hyde.
Obviously. But
I knew Jake Locker was the worst pick that they had made. I was like,
Jake Locker and
that guy was awful in the pack.
Marcus Mariota, I thought, was one of the worst picks too.
I mean, horrible. Different NFL. But again, stay away from Pac-12 QBs, man, other than Troy Aikman since then.
And then the A.J. Brown trade, I almost had a heart attack. Like
It was Entree Roll that I wanted over Pac-Man. I knew we needed a DB.
Yeah. Florida
Yeah.
State. He was a hell of a
Yeah.
DB.
And
remember
then
Samari Roll back in
Rogers
the
was
day?
back there.
Good.
Does Robbie speak English? Because I'm starting to wonder. He definitely doesn't speak French or Russian or
Samari
Czechoslovakian.
Roll? It's not Roll A.
No, but you're like Entree Roll.
No, Entree Roll.
Antrell is his name. Okay. Show some respect.
Robbie's not from the streets, so.
Yeah.
Duh. Streets of Orange County, bro.
The Raiders took Fabian Robinson that year. Washington.
Oh, God.
Aaron Rodgers was sitting there at 24 too. Yeah, it was a bad draft for the Titans.
So
Yeah.
bad.
All right, boys. Enough with the draft. Let's talk about the America's pastime. Baseball's heating up now. Good series over the weekend for young clubs, and both that are really hot right now. The Reds and the Braves. Braves ended up taking the series 2-1, but in a highly entertaining series. The young guns came out to play. Tom, I'll start with you. Baseball, it's back. I mean, the pitch clock, the shift restrictions, it's exciting again, right?
Yes, I'm going to lead with this video, and then we'll hit on it when we get on the other side.
All right.
That is blitz to right center field. Off the top of the wall. Dave LaCruz storms up to second base. He nearly had a home run. Pitch. First pitch in the air to right. Acuna back at the wall. Gone! 1-2. Broke his bat. That's in the center. Base hit. Windmill on McClain. Scoring opportunities. De La Cruz, right center. Down base hit. Could he go three? India around third. India scores. It's a cycle.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, first thing first, how sweet are those Reds uniforms?
Oh, the City Connect? Yeah, I like them. They're nice. I don't think we've seen a player with the hype come up and back it up. Just absolutely back it up with Ellie De La Cruz. His stat line here, and this is based on the other night, almost 300 batting, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs. I mean, this is 19 games played. OPS almost 900. These are numbers that you're not supposed to be seeing from a kid that just got called up, and you guys are familiar with him playing in Chattanooga with the Lookouts. But it's players like this. It's the rule changes, the pitch clock, the games are shorter. People are going to the stadiums like we talked about last week. There's an uptick in attendance, which this is the first time in years that it's actually increased. So
6 to 8%, and I think I saw a statistic would translate to like 65 to maybe even 100 million more in revenue.
Yeah, it's
insane. Right now, if you put teams
it's so much more revenue that they're actually talking about dropping it back to 154 games now.
They should have done that years ago.
Yeah, they need to.
Now, Tom,
the Braves were sold out midweek, and I've never seen that. Like the outfield, I'm like, wow, like that's it's Atlanta's a transient city. That when they win, people show up, and they are showing up.
Tom, you brought up a point though that I hadn't thought about till you just brought it up. When you say these kids aren't prepared for the major leagues, is there a changing of the guard in some sort, or let's a change of philosophy that these kids in the minors have grown up with this pitch clock, with this lack of shifting? Are they more prepared now than they have in the past? Because they're used to this quick hitting and no shift. Because what Major League's doing is, people don't know, Major League Baseball has been experimenting in the minor leagues of these rule changes and then putting them in the majors. So is it more natural for them as opposed to the big leaguers now adjusting to this the first year?
I mean, it could be. But you get a player like De La Cruz. He's just
Well, yeah, he's going to be a stud regardless.
He's God-gifted talent. But then you look at here in Detroit, you got Spencer Torkelson, who went number 1 3 years ago. Went right through single A, right to double A, right to triple A, and his trajectory was high. Got to the big leagues, and he just didn't mount to anything. Had a really bad year last year. He's been up and down. He hit two big home runs today, but this season he's been a little bit better. He's been a little bit more consistent, but I think it's a case of pressure. Are they prepared mentally, pressure-wise, to handle the bright lights? As our play-by-play guy here, Jim Price, likes to say, that up in the big buildings. But there's some players that they're made for it, and others that aren't. And De La Cruz certainly is. And another guy that is this guy right here, Ronald Acuna.
Yeah, and we're going to get to him. I want to stick on De La Cruz for a second. Raj, I know you saw him play in Chattanooga. I did too. When I first saw him, I was like, this guy's not going to be here very long. He's a stud.
No, and there's the O'Neal Cruz is the Pittsburgh shortstop, and Corey Seager's 6'4", 6'5". Back in the day, shortstops were, 5'8".
What was Ozzie Smith, like 5'8", 5'9"?
Yeah,
he was like 5'5" or 6.
Yeah. These Sarcina, the Angels had on their 2002 with Tim Salmon. That shortstop was like 3 feet tall. But anyways, after O'Neal Cruz, you see this guy, and when we watched him live, I've told you guys, in Chattanooga, Double-A, I've seen a few players that were just separated themselves. The first player I saw, like early 2000s, was Joey Votto. Jason Hayward, when he was healthy, was on the Birmingham team. He was next level. When I saw De La Cruz, we didn't hear a lot of hype about him. He was signed for $65,000, I believe, in 2018 out of the Dominican Summer League. Total Dodger move, who, by the way, started international scouting in Central and South America, which, that helps me sleep at night. But COVID hit, and people didn't know he has a fraternal twin that's like 5'8". He's just a freak, and his raw athletic.
Do you pay for like Google Plus? How do you know all this?
I don't know, dude. I don't know what I remember yesterday, but or what I wore yesterday.
or text
if you could
like
use
Rain
all
Man
this
over here.
energy to send text messages,
and
you would be like so far ahead in life.
Dude, dude. I have a 1-day erased memory. I'm a movie, but no, I mean he. When you watch him, he has soft hands as a shortstop. When he first was like scouted, they said he was 6'2". He's 6'5". Like, people didn't know anything about him. He's got a great arm. He's had the highest velo off the bat and on a grounder. Some people thought ever, like 120 plus. He's just raw, but pure, right? Like he came up the hard way. He has a chip on his shoulder. So he's not like other kids that come up and, like, I don't mean to call it Torkelson. I don't know him or know of him, but De La Cruz certainly came up from nothing, and he proves it every day. And yeah, he is a different type of dude, but I think there's just so much unknown about him. So we'll see when more people go through the orders and see him second, third time. But so far, to have the cycle in your 15th game, let alone in the All Black City Connects, I mean, that was just straight up gangster, dude. That was hard. I was like, wow. And by the way, the combined score in that Braves series was 24-23, Atlanta. And it showed you that Atlanta jumped out early because they're starting pitching, but they have injuries on the back end. The Reds tried to climb back, but the Braves are the class of baseball right now. It's not Tampa. And,
Great segue. Brandon, are the Braves right now the favorite to win it all? They are. We'll put the odds up on the screen and we'll talk about it. So we have the Braves plus 360, Tampa plus 420, Dodgers plus 480, then a big jump to the Rangers, Astros at plus 1,000. Brandon, if you've got your hard-earned Aruba vacation money set aside, are you betting on the Braves?
Probably. I mean, I like where they're at. They're starting to peak a little better and come into. But as you all know, I'm a casual baseball fan, so I don't really start watching until about this time or after the All-Star break. And it's not always the hot team or the best team that wins. It's the hot team at the end. So
100%.
Again, this is like it's like betting on Scotty Scheffler to win every tournament because he's the number one in the world. But is he going to win every tournament? Probably not. So it's a coin flip. I still like where the Dodgers are at as well. I
think
will take this like I do golf bets where you take 3 or 4 of your favorite ones and sprinkle a little money on all of them and hope one hits because that's what the baseball playoff series is going to be.
And that, boys and girls, is how you get to Aruba. So we're at 51 minutes. Tom, quickly, who's your World Series favorite right now?
I'm going to go Dodgers. I think they have the depth. They have the experience. They've got the best player, the most aggressive player, just all around. Mookie Betts. I love that guy. I think.
Hey,
yeah,
props to Mookie for going to the home run derby. I like
Mookie
that.
Betts, Freddie Freeman.
I don't want him in the home run derby.
I like that his wife said, "Hey, just try, just have fun while you're there." I like that.
Super taxing.
Raj, quickly, who do you got? If you're betting
Dodgers
now,
have 5 starting pitchers, 3 or 4 everyday players, and 5 relievers that are all in the IL, some for 60 days. It doesn't matter. I think the Braves are the best team. That being said, the best team does not win. It's who's hot. And I think it'll be someone that gets hot late. I don't know who it will be. It won't be the Reds. It won't be, but
do you understand what the question was? Who are you betting on right now? Not I'll wait and see.
I mean,
down the line.
Dodgers had one of the best records historically last year. And after that shit, and everybody would ask, Dodgers will win it. No.
I'm starting to wonder if Raj speaks
the Braves are the best team in baseball.
Who are you betting on right now?
Right now, I'm going to bet on a random fucking team, Texas Rangers.
Okay, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how you get a question answered.
That's it.
Plus 1,000. Good odds.
Yeah, plus 1,000.
I like it.
I might sprinkle a little on that.
So
we'll just split a series against the Tigers.
Let's talk about the AL. We have a list, but let's just start off with, is this playoff run for the Angels the most important playoff run, at least that I can remember? Because they've got to make it, I think, to keep Ohtani, or else he's going to go. And the guy's the unicorn of all unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, what do you think?
I heard a number that's floating around, and the starting point, $600 million. Oh. And Marty, what's the owner's name? Marty or Artie Moreno, whatever.
Artie Moreno
for the Angels says he has no problem playing in that ballpark. So, but yes, he's not going to stay if they don't win. But then you got to look at it. If they're spending $600+ million on him, where's the money coming from for the other players? But I do think this last half of the season is crucial if the Angels want to keep Shohei. But I don't think there's a whole lot of other teams out there that are willing to open the pocketbook to that extent, and maybe 3 at the most. My dark horse is the Seattle Mariners.
There's always the Dodgers.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, obviously Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers.
Yankees aren't. Their payroll's already almost that. They're not going to double their payroll.
Cubs.
No Cubs. You're looking at maybe the Dodgers, Seattle.
The Dodgers are going to try to go hard, but ethnic population does matter when it comes to Shohei, when it comes to marketing, and the Dodgers and the New York Yankees, the 2 biggest teams in Japan that can market themselves.
And the Red Sox just got that second baseman, Yoshida, who is friends with Ohtani, so there's a possibility right there too.
So Tom, you obviously have, and Raj, you have a handle on this. So hometown question. It seems to me the Braves have a young team all locked up into reasonable contracts. Can they get into play?
Sure.
No, not that's not their MO. Actually, Anthopoulos is akin to Friedman, or he was. They don't do that, and that's how they've been successful. The Angels are the antithesis, with huge contracts to Pujols, 10 years when he was 31. Trout, Anthony Rendon was an MVP at like 30 plus, who's been terrible. They can't afford Shohei. The Braves don't do that, and they don't need to. He traded when they had a catcher, Darno, for Sean Murphy, who was up to be a free agent, and re-signed him for bargain basement, who's an all-star. They're not going to spend $600 million on him, and they don't need it because they are a very smart organization. Plus, not a huge Japanese population in Atlanta.
Oh, and I look at it like this: like you're either, trying to put fans in the seats and have this huge name that draws in people and sells tickets and all this stuff, or you're going to try and win a game or win a World Series. And I mean, they're making a push for it, but like you guys said, if they pay him this much money, he's not going to have anyone around him, and that's all you're going to be able to do is put fans in the seats and draw on his name, and he'll wow in some games here and there, but other than that, they're not going to win anything. So we'll see who opens up the checkbook.
Yeah, I mean, you figure you got him and you got Trout right there. You're looking at,
but they still suck until this
close to
year.
$100 million just between those two players.
Yeah.
So, but I think what the Angels have going for them is there's not a lot of teams out there that are willing to open the checkbook, so to speak. Mike Ilitch is long passed away, so he'll never be coming to the Tigers. So we don't have to worry about that.
I mean, it's a lot for one guy.
It is a lot. Someone's gonna do it though. Someone's gonna pull a trigger. Well, all right. So, sports is one part of this segment. The other part of the what we do here is kind of just we're starting to transition into life and kind of how we handle things, or things that we're going through that other people are probably doing kind of the same. And one of the things, I'll start off with some backdrop of how this kind of came to be talked about was, you have your everyday kind of interactions and your riffs and just friction among people. And I was just at the beach with some of my family and some of my cousins and all this, and there's 11 of us. But nonetheless, so it's just talking about dinner, talking about, what you want to do. Do you want to go play golf, or do you want to do whatever, play pickleball or whatever? And, I can either be, a really easy person to get along with or a really hard person to get along with. It just kind of depends on the mood and whatever, what you have. And we're talking about dinner, and they wanted to go to Mexican food. I love Mexican food, but not at the beach. And so I was like, no, I'm going to eat seafood. And my cousin Tom looked at me and he was like, I get it. You say you don't want what you want to do. You're not going to do what you don't want to do. Cool. End of discussion. And I was like, huh. I was like, maybe you're the first person that's ever kind of perceived me how I perceive myself. That's a long story short of being like, there's a huge difference of how you perceive yourself and how you think others perceive you. And with that being said, I will start. Like, I think I perceive, and there's a disconnect, right? And so I think I perceive myself as a, caring, nice person, a good friend, person that will reach out, and will do things for other people. And then, but hearing, him say that, which is very accurate what he said, I was like, well, people perceive me as kind of selfish, a little bit of a jerk, standoffish, selfish, I guess. And it's like, wow, I was like, there's a huge disconnect between how I see myself and how people see me. And so now it's kind of reflection time for me to be like, I've got to merge those two things. And it's kind of eye opening. And it's something that you need to, or at least I think I need to stand back and reflect on how I merge those two viewpoints and kind of make that happen. Make it at least somewhere in the middle where I can at least be an approachable jerk. So that's kind of my story of where this topic kind of came from, and we're gonna try to do this every week. Who wants to go next? Kind of this. How do you think?
I just interpret what you just said quickly. Family is the worst because they think they know you by relation, but they don't know shit because you never talk to them and whatnot. If you were selfish and whatnot, you would do what I do and lay foundation. Like, okay, first of all, that's not the beach. That's a shitty Gulf area. I was in San Diego, went to law school there, lived there for 5-6 years. That's also next to Mexico, so I know all these things. You didn't do that. That's something I would have done. And you can call me selfish and full of myself, which I still am, but you are not. So you don't have anything to worry about. I also don't give a shit about what people think about me. I know what I am. I thought I was cooler when I was younger, and now there are some doubts, mainly from like those that I'm closest to, but you are the farthest thing from selfish.
No.
But
this isn't. You,
no, but you're talking about perception.
No. How do you perceive yourself?
Well, you're doubting yourself.
No. It doesn't matter. How do you perceive yourself?
I mean, we live in a passive-aggressive society in the South. So I sometimes like to fuck with people. Excuse the expression, push buttons, show one thing, be another. But that's my interpretation, you know, whether I rationalize or not. I'm pretty awesome. And that's really all do. I go home and cry after this when I sober up in the mirror? Yeah, I do. But
all right. So the flip side of that, how do you think people perceive you?
You know, I believe personally it's a reflection of your own. I understand that's cyclical of your own self, right? Like if you're intimidated by me or you may talk trash or whatnot. I think many may be threatened by arrogance and or confidence and otherwise. It's probably not positive. I tend to be social. Like our neighbors think my wife is like mean and they're scared of her, but she just doesn't talk to people, whereas I do. So I think perception is skin deep, and you can easily override that by just opening a
right.
You know,
but to pick that apart, though, so you think people perceive you as arrogant and okay. And now, is there a connection? Is that the same thing that you perceive yourself, or is there a connection part?
No, sometimes I think I insecurely enjoy that perception just to prove people wrong, which is also very shallow, and I recognize that. I'm extremely introspective when it comes to myself, but I can't change shit. And that's the hard part. Changing, not understanding or acknowledging.
Well, we have a little shots fired on the message board for people that can't see. River City Media, and probably one Randall Cunningham, says, Robbie saved my daughter's future, and yet he is such a crappy fantasy football player. And that's what you're talking about, perception not meeting reality, right? So, I mean, of course, I saved his daughter's future. I'm definitely not a crappy football player.
You know?
Brandon, what do you think? What do you think? Both, you know, how do you perceive yourself, and how do others perceive you?
I perceive myself probably empathetic, and I'm kind of a chameleon. Like I fit into situations really well with different groups of people, you know, whoever it is. I just kind of, I'm very malleable in those situations. So I feel that way.
Yeah.
Adaptive. You're definitely
I'm adaptive, which, you know,
definitely that.
There again, I think helps me in my career as well, with sales and doing stuff like that. So
a stranger walks in the room, meets you for 15 minutes. What do you think they think?
I liked him right away. I thought you were a douchebag, but right away I was like, this guy's pretty cool.
I would think it's close to those lines. The only thing is the downside of that is sometimes I do care too much what people think. So I may be overindulgent in some of those attributes to people. So I could come off as, I don't know, just kind of fake sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's
When I prepare someone for a deposition, I get them to write, give me your 3 traits of what your best friend would say about you, the 3 things your neighbor would say about you, and the 3 things your worst enemy would say about you, and see how many of those cross over.
sure.
And it's just kind of an interesting kind of paradox.
Yeah. Now another side, like
Because that's
if people
fast.
don't
I mean, you
see
guys,
that much, is I have a very long fuse. Like I'm very easygoing, laid back. Like it takes a lot to get me pissed off, but when I do, like I flip out.
Yeah.
It's like an atomic bomb. So it's bad.
you do. There is a
And Tom, the 3 of us know you the least, so I'm very curious about this from you. Obviously, because me and Brandon, at least, we've had the fortunate experience of meeting you, and so we saw you and we had this perception of what we perceive of you, and then getting to know you. So I'm interested to see what you say about this question.
I think I can emulate a lot of what Brandon says. I feel like I put other people before me, and I get this from my wife because she's very empathetic. So I've kind of taken on a lot of her traits. And I think my weakness really is I worry too much about what other people think of me, and I think that comes from working midnight shift for 25 years. 18 years old, I went and worked the midnight shift, and I never really had that interaction with people my age, going out and experiencing certain things. So I think I basically lost a lot of perception, per se, as we're talking about, on how I am supposed to be in life. So this day shift thing is, within the last 5 years is all new to me. So I'm very hypercritical about how I present myself towards other people. And I know that's probably not the right thing to do. And I'm trying to lean away from that because I feel like the more I put myself out there for certain people, it ends up biting me in the ass in the long run. So I try to keep people at an arm's length these days. And I don't know if that pushes people away or not, but I'm comfortable about where I am at in that regard.
And
And
we're
what do
going
you
to
think
get
about
into
other
this
people
more, but
think about
I
you?
have to admit that I was massively insecure for at least 20 years of my life.
Oh, 100%.
It kind of flipped. So I didn't just grow up this way where I stopped giving a shit. So we'll get into that more because this is something that's extremely important to all of us and really to everyone if you're able and secure enough to admit it.
Well,
Sure.
and let me ask, you two that are fathers, Tom's a stepfather. Did having kids change? Because I imagine once you have kids, you're like, there's a whole hell of a lot to care about more than what people think about me. Is that accurate?
No, for sure. 100%.
For me, as a stepfather, I'm learning every visit and whatnot. And I have learned that I'm very selfish. And I tend to put myself at the front of the table when it comes to the family, and that is absolutely wrong. And I'm trying to change my ways when it comes to that. And so it's made me learn a little bit more about myself and how I handle the stresses and the pressures. I mean, you guys are biological fathers, with the exception of Robbie. Those are different pressures, I can imagine. So with me, I'm dealing with a whole nother human being that plays into their heads, that gets into my head. And so it's a learning curve for sure that I'm open to to doing the best I can.
It's more challenging, but you're still raising a child, and it doesn't matter biological or not.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Rob, I grew up with a very critical family, and not critical in the sense that it was just Indian nature, and I'll expand on that later, but every decision was sort of, and that's how my mother grew up, and I'm the same. And it makes one question their, decision making, which is a dichotomy. I feel like I'm in a working dichotomy, and I can be very confident in many decisions, but like I don't like multiple choice. Like, passing the bar, I destroyed the essays. But when I did the multi-state, which is a multiple choice section, I barely made it. And we're not going to go into that, but I just questioned it. I just second guess myself. And I'm that same way with everything he does. And I mean well, and my mom means well about like what we want someone to be based on what we are. And sometimes as a parent, I think that's, you want your kid to be a better version of you, but at the same token, you can be extremely critical, extremely judgmental, and to make them question their decisions, which is very hard. I mean, that's the opposite of what you're trying to do. And it's something that you realize in hindsight, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's just something, in this exercise, and this is part of the segment we're going to do during the summer, is just kind of get people thinking, well, one, if you're going through these problems or if you're thinking of just these things, like you're not alone, and just kind of talk through them, and just some different exercises that seem to help, and just kind of just talk about what you want people to think about you, and do they think about that, and are you being true, because you can be true to yourself and also portray what you want to portray, but you can be true to yourself and portray something different because you're just so worried about being true to yourself and not necessarily thinking what other people think. So it's just a kind of a balancing act, and just think about other people and how you want to be perceived.
Acknowledgement is the first and most important step. Acknowledgement. And
Yeah.
I believe if we talk about things like this, then maybe that's a start for someone else.
Oh yeah, I mean, hopefully there's a whole group of people that are going to get on our show and skip right down to this segment and just watch this segment while they, drive to work or whatever they do, or drink coffee in the morning, and they can just listen to us. And we're going to progress, and we're going to get deeper into this stuff. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But the reason why we put this right before Bet Your Nuts is because we want to keep you on for the free money. And so that's what we're getting to now. So coming up now,
it's time for Bet Your Nuts.
all right, boys. Not gonna lie, I'm on a cold streak that might as well put me in Antarctica in the winter. I'm just gonna get mine out of the way because it's gonna gloss over people's ears. I'm just gonna say it. It's a road course. It's in Chicago. I'm taking the best road course driver, Tyler Reddick, plus 750. I think he pulls through. Larson's
Go
plus
Larson.
700. I'm going to take slightly better odds. I'm going Tyler Reddick plus 750. Please, God, or I'm going to be sleeping in a damn box.
At least it'll be air conditioned, right?
Yeah. Raj, what do you got?
I'm actually going to go to tomorrow in a day game on a Friday, which is Chicago Cubs at home against the Guardians, with Justin Steele against Caleb Quantrill. It's minus 160 for the Cubs, which is surprising to me. Steele is nasty. And I think Vegas is believing that because it's a day game, he won't be the same. But, I mean, he is nasty, and I think they will crush them.
All right,
The Guardians. I'm going to keep it
with golf as usual because there's not a whole lot going on right now. Going to Rocket Mortgage. They're at Detroit Golf Club, I think it is. Yeah, Detroit Golf Club, right there in Tom's backyard. I'm gonna look at Ricky Fowler right now. He's been really, really hot. Not to win it, but I like Ricky Fowler top 5 is plus 200. He's been right there, and he's playing really, really well right now. And then I've got another little small caveat. Tomorrow only, it's the Ricky Fowler versus Finau and Joe Dunham. He's plus 120, and I like his matchup against those two guys too. So,
All right, Tom.
Yes, I'm going to stay in Detroit, as I like to call it, the Tony Finau Classic, because he's won back-to-back, but I don't think he's going to do that this year. He's currently in 144th. He is even, so he may make the cut, but we'll see. I, too, like Ricky Fowler. I think the last major he played really well. He's favored at plus 1,000 to win. He's currently in 14th, tied at 5 under. This is his tournament, basically. Rocket Mortgage is his number one sponsor. So, fun fact, Accenture, my company I work for, is involved with it, and there was an opportunity we had to go down and volunteer. Still may do that, depends on the weather, but maybe you'll see some pictures of me down there if the weather gets a little better. But give me Fowler to win plus 1,000.
All right. And once again, please like, subscribe, share, follow, all the good social media stuff. We're getting to the final words now. We will be brief with these guys. We've been taking a little bit longer than we want to. We're keeping you guys on the treadmill or out walking, out drinking a little longer than maybe you want to. Brandon, what do you got for the final words?
Not a ton today, man. Really, I like our new segment, Misunderstood. So everyone, just stay tuned for that. We're going to be filling up space and keeping you guys entertained, and hopefully, getting people to actually start talking to other people if they have issues. So,
yeah. Tom, what do you got?
Real quick, my godfather's daughter is in dire need of a kidney transplant, and I'm actually going to go and take the test to see if I qualify as a donor. This is something that's kind of touched my heart the last few days. And it's just, you have a feeling sometimes that comes over you like this is your purpose. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a phone call tomorrow and start that process. Do it. If you have the opportunity to be some sort of a donor or even donate blood, you never know what your donation can do for another human being's life. And this may be my purpose. I feel pretty compelled by it. So life is bigger than you. And if you have the opportunity to help out another person, then man, that I don't see anything better than that. So the Kidney Foundation is the organization that I'm going to reach out to. So,
yeah. So
Nobody
we'll talk
likes
after the show, Tom, about that.
Okay, so
Raj.
sincere. I don't know, Tom, if you got my yeah. So rest in peace, Rosie girl. She was our rescue. We had one little tiny dog that we had rescued, my wife and I's first kid. And she has one eye. She was abused by her previous owner. And when she had puppies in the shelter, she was so protective of them that a bigger dog remembered once the puppies got adopted, they came out and found her in her mouth. She followed me everywhere when we were in Petco, when they have those adoptive presentations, if you will. And once we heard her story, whether bullshit or not, we were like, wow. And she was a fiercely protective. The top picture in the upper left, I was a passenger in an auto accident where the driver fell asleep, sober, despite perceptions. And she didn't leave me. The bottom is Red Ryder BB gun, in the middle. The bottom left is the last couple days. And one-eyed dog who lost her eye to blunt force trauma. She was also a gangster, thug life. She'd beat up other dogs around her. She scared our giant dog over here, Phoebe. I have very little compassion for humans, but for dogs, they're part of our lives. They shape who we are. They're the most loyal creatures on earth. And I will. I'll miss Thug Life till the end, man. She was unforgettable dog. She died Monday in my arms, by the way.
Sorry about that. 16,
we think. We don't know to rescue. My wife says I have a black heart. She says that the first time she almost saw a tear was when the dog died, which I had a tear, but
I almost cried making that graphic for you,
man. I love that thing.
Yeah, I'm almost crying thinking about my dog that died. I had something to say, but it's totally not important at the moment.
Nothing is when you follow Tom, man. He's
Tom, that's a great thing that you're doing. Raj, I'm so sorry about your dog. And I guess my final words are, this is what friends are for, and to, pick up, not necessarily the slack, but pick up a text message or get on a show like this when things are going on in your world that you can't control, and this is kind of an escape, which kind of goes with misunderstood segment. Like there's things going on in everyone's life that we don't know about, and so I guess in humanity, give people a pass every once in a while. Not everything has to be so GD angry. Just calm down and respect that someone next to you, in front of you, or behind you may be having a bad day or a bad month or a bad week. And let's just all take that into account.
Nor do we have to measure, by the way. Some may be worse than others, but everyone's issues are relative, and it's okay to talk about it. I think people swallow things because of that fact, and it's okay to talk about it. It's not something that you measure versus another.
Yeah, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset.
American Gladiators documentary on Netflix, Nitro said that, boys don't cry, but men do.
Yeah, I like that.
That's nice.
Without further ado, boys and girls, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with brand new topics and brand new conversations. Thanks again, and we are out.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Reckless Speculation. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, searching Reckless Speculation. Catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to catching you right here next week with another exciting episode of Reckless Speculation. Cheers.